Hey there, wizards. How's it going? If there's one thing we can really feel while reading Harry Potter or watching it, I think especially while reading, when you read, it's even stronger. Hate, yes, hate, anger, that urge to, grab that character by the neck like this, So, thinking about that, I made a list here. I'm actually going to try to rank the 10 characters I dislike the most, the ones I hate the most in Harry Potter. Does that mean they are completely hateful characters? Maybe yes, maybe no. Characters who didn't get redemption or something like that? Maybe yes, maybe no. The point is, regardless of anything, this list, it's about how I felt about these characters while I was reading Harry Potter for the first time, and also when I reread it. Obviously, I have my opinions about these characters that I'm going to talk about now, but without much beating around the bush. Let's jump into this ranking, since I always want to finish these videos as soon as I start them. Because I don't like feeling angry, and one thing that's making me angry is this camera's aperture. Sometimes it catches more light, then later it catches less light. Then I end up looking like a ghost, and I'm getting a little irritated that I can't fix this. In 10th place on my list is Percy Weasley. I know a lot of people don't like Percy. He does have a moment of redemption, of clarity, which is when the Battle of Hogwarts is happening. And there's a really heavy moment with him, which is Fred's death, right? Percy is there at that moment, and he's really affected by it. Especially because of his choices, And how long it took him to realize that he was on the wrong side of the story, right? But man, what makes me hate Percy isn't even the mistakes he makes, because everyone makes mistakes. But man, what bothers me about Percy is that he's someone who doesn't value the family he has. That famous phrase, rich in what money can't buy, that's exactly Percy. All right, it's not easy to really not have financial means, right? Going through a lot of hardships, there is something that causes frustration, that causes anger, and above all, creates a lot of desires and dreams. I know, because most of my life I was poor. Not that today I'm rich. But anyway, the way Percy becomes blinded by the Ministry of Magic and how he simply turns against his own family really bothers me. Man, it makes me really angry. And while I was reading the books, especially, this fight happens in Order of the Phoenix, right? But Percy, his pompous way, thinking he's more important, considering himself more important than he really is, that already made me feel a certain resentment. A bit of resentment there, but nothing major. Like, okay, the kid, well, he's a prefect and he's proud of it. Okay, looking a bit from his point of view, he's proud to be a prefect. He wants to be someone in life, to have an important position and all, but the way he deals with it is what makes me hate him, So I hate the fact that he rubs it in Senior Weasley's face, that they're poor, because Senior Weasley was like that, He wanted to be a physicist, fascinated by muggle things. A department in the ministry that has no ambition at all, no career plan or anything like that. And man, it bothers me because Senior Weasley, he's such a great dad, man. He's a real father figure, and I think that means a lot. This feeling I have comes a lot from the way the Weasley family welcomes Harry, and we follow the book through Harry's eyes, right? That's how we feel. I feel so welcomed by the Weasleys that I also feel offended in a way, immersed in the story, I feel offended by Percy doing these things, It's like he's doing that to someone in my own family. So, because of that, he's going to take the 10th place here. I think his redemption in the story is cool, but it's very quick, it's very short, it's not really a big thing. Wow, but I think it matches the importance of the character. Let's take that into account, right? We're talking about Percy. He's not like any of the Weasleys who deserve that much attention, but I wanted to see Percy's relationship with the Weasley family explored more in the series. To see that side of him, that annoying thing, that thing about thinking he's so important, and especially his betrayal of the Weasley family. Because, man, you see, in the first book, there's a really big contrast in the first book. He talks. No, Dumbledore is brilliant. And then, when Voldemort returns, he just starts calling Dumbledore crazy. And Harry, man, Harry, you know Percy. More than anyone, he knows what Harry went through. The Weasley family takes Harry in. He knows what Harry went through. You know, and for him to side with the Ministry is simply, for me, unacceptable. So, he goes to 10th place. I hate Percy Weasley. In 9th place here in our ranking, I don't think this will surprise many people. But there's Lucius Malfoy. And man, the problem with Lucius for me is that he represents everything I hate. He's a manipulative person. He manipulates things with his purchasing power, with his money. In other words, he buys truths. He buys people. He buys freedom. And he's that typical rich person at the top of society who defends family values, right? Being completely prejudiced, Lucius Malfoy is a total caricature of that in the wizarding world, right? He's a eugenicist. He values blood purity. He's prejudiced against Muggle-borns. You get it. He's a person and, well, he's someone who, considering everything that's happened, right? In the end, he just gives up the fight and goes after Draco, right? To find Draco. But even after Voldemort's fall, Lucius is a guy who doesn't change his point of view. You know, he still holds on to those blood prejudices, that elitism in the wizarding world, you know?
So, man, I hate Lucius Malfoy because of that. I really can't stand him. I hate the person Lucius Malfoy is. He's just not someone who can be redeemed like that, because he truly believes his way of seeing things is the right one.
And that's it, period, you know? And that really bothers me about Lucius Malfoy. I hate Lucius Malfoy because of that. Narcissa, I didn't even put her on this list, nor did I put Draco on this list. Okay, I'm already giving spoilers. I didn't put Draco because I think the main mastermind behind everything is Lucius Malfoy. In the family, at least in their family core. Narcissa there, she's no saint either. But I think the weight she had there, of course, was super selfish. To find her son without thinking about anything or anyone, just her son, it's something, wow, how heroic, right? But in fact, that paved the way for what was going to unfold from there. Right, that choice, her decision to lie to Voldemort about whether Harry was alive or not. Wow, she didn't become a saint. Not at all. Not at all. She's still worthy of being hated there. But I think Lucius Malfoy is still much worse, because Lucius, he doesn't have a single thing he does that you could say otherwise. Man, no, I regretted it, dude. This doesn't make any sense, man. I'm going to try to fix it somehow. No, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. So, like, I hate him for that prejudiced, elitist view of his, you know, I really hate him. In 8th place on our list, well, I have a very Gryffindor point of view here. In 8th place is Marvolo Gaunt, the guy who was Voldemort's grandfather.
My problem with Marvolo Gaunt, besides him having all those issues that Lucius Malfoy also has, is that he's even more extreme. And, like, he is.
The Gaunt family, in general, forced the family to live in misery because of things that had no value at all, which was this thing about purity. Like, oh, the family. My family is more important. My name. You know what I mean? Like, the way they treated Merope. Merope was so miserable. You know, man, they created a Voldemort.
Because all of that, the way he raises his daughter, how he's completely violent with her, both physically and psychologically, right? The girl was totally disturbed.
And then, man, that led to the main point there, which was the birth of Voldemort. You know, the birth of Tom Riddle. And man, if that weren't the case, it's true that if it weren't true, we wouldn't study it. We wouldn't go deeper into it. At the origin of Voldemort there, even before his own birth, you get it? That shaped the fact that Voldemort exists. Dumbledore even says it, right? Well, who knows? If Tom Riddle had been raised by his mother, with love, knowing love, who knows? Maybe Voldemort wouldn't exist. So, Marvolo Gaunt, I hate him because of that. Like, he's a disgusting old man, you know? I think that's the main word. He's a disgusting old man. He values blood purity above the well-being of his own family. He even, actually, unlike Lucius, Lucius is rich, has money, can provide whatever. Gaunt, He can't. The whole family blew through the money they had and lived in misery, you know? It's a sad thing. Voldemort's origin is sad.
If you stop to think about it, it bothers me, and Marvolo Gaunt is a guy I don't like.
In 7th place, ranking here among the characters I hate the most, is Rita Skeeter. If there's one thing I hate in this life, hate with all my strength, it's the kind of work that Rita Skeeter does.
She's not a journalist. She's just pretending to be one. Do some serious work.
I'm saying that I see Rita Skeeter as a kind of Leo Diaz, you know?
It's not about the story. It's not about the news. It's not about the beauty of journalism.
It's that thing about ruining lives, about wanting, above all, to ruin reputations, you know, like wanting to distort realities. That's something that really bothers me about Rita Skeeter and all the contributions she makes to the wizarding world. Simply doubting Harry and Dumbledore about Voldemort's return.
If you stop to think about it, she's indirectly responsible for several deaths.
Because what she put in the media about Harry contributed to people thinking that Harry was really crazy, that he was making things up. That gave Voldemort time to plan and act with more confidence and security without being confronted directly. So, think about how many deaths could have been avoided if the fight against Voldemort, if the effort after his return had actually been made by the Ministry of Magic. If the Ministry of Magic had acted, then the control of the media there. The distortion of things is something that really bothers me in Harry Potter. It bothers me. It makes me furious. It really makes me angry. And Rita Skeeter is one of those people who is the target of much of my hatred. And since I mentioned Rita Skeeter, 6th place also goes to a guy who's in that little group, which is Cornelius. Fudge, damn it, Fudge, man. There's no explanation for how much I hate him. There's just no explanation. Man, like, there is an explanation, obviously, but man, it really bothers me that Fudge is a guy who wants to...
He's much more worried about showing off than actually working.
He has Hagrid arrested simply because people had to think he was doing something about the attacks.
I mean, let's investigate thoroughly. Let's see what's really going on.
No. Let's arrest a guy who's innocent just because he has a record that hasn't even been proven, right? It was a trap there. It was something that was completely set up.
Against Hagrid, he just sends the guy to Azkaban. You know, no, listen. He says exactly this. Listen, Hagrid, people need to see that I'm taking action, so that's it. Man, that makes me so mad.
He's a complete fool, you know? He's a complete fool. He's a complete fool. He's always asking Dumbledore for advice, right? He was always asking Dumbledore for advice, always asking for help. And then when it was time to, you know, put it on Dumbledore, man, then he knows, man, sorry. When I get angry, I get stressed and I stumble over my words. But here's the thing about Fudge. One of the things I hate most about him is how he treated Harry. Like, when Harry shows up there, in Prisoner of Azkaban, after he runs away, and he's found at the Leaky Cauldron, Fudge is all like, no, Harry, it's all right. You're not going to be punished for a silly little spell. Like, no, what's up with that, Fudge?
He knew that the spell in the 2nd year was actually Dobby's, back at the Dursleys' house. And then in the 3rd year, he's like, it's all fine, whatever. So,
after the trial, at Harry's hearing, when he casts the spell, right? When he does the Patronus, the guy just tries to use all of that against Harry. No, he already got a warning in the 2nd year. Then in the 3rd year, he made his aunt turn into a balloon.
And Dumbledore says something like, you yourself cleared him, you know? So Fudge, I hate him, man. I hate him. I hate him.
And then he just wants to turn Hogwarts into his own political playground and put Umbridge in Hogwarts. And he wants to change things at the school to go the way he thinks is right, you know?
And try to undermine people's strength there. Undermine the students' magical abilities.
Because he was afraid of a revolution and that he would be removed from his position. Because Dumbledore was planning that, you know? While people were actually dying because of Harry, the return of Voldemort. A guy I can't stand. I really can't stand him. A denier. A clown. You know, an idiot. Man, Fudge to me, he should have, I don't know, man, he should have died.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't miss him at all if he died. And then, what makes me the angriest about Fudge is this. After he came back. Oh, don't tell me. Don't tell me, you idiot, you animal. Don't tell me he really came back. What everyone was saying all along. He came back, you old loser, sorry. Anyway, Fudge there. Okay, I hate Fudge for these reasons, but one thing that makes me hate Fudge even more is that after he realizes, no, Voldemort really did return, and then he's dismissed and all that.
He tries to make Harry the poster boy for the Ministry.
After everything he did to Harry and Dumbledore, he wants to bring Harry in. He talks to Dumbledore, right?
And Dumbledore says, Harry won't want that, man. Harry won't want that. Which is basically trying to make Harry a poster boy for the Ministry and say, no, we were working together and all that, you know? And actually, that's something that Rufus Scrimgeour later tries to do with Harry, because the idea came from Fudge. I mean, man, you manipulate the media. You turn everyone against the kid. Call him crazy. Harry already doesn't have an easy life, you know? His parents were killed. He was raised by his aunt and uncle, those freaks, and then they just make the kid suffer a lot. Call him a liar. Call him crazy. A lunatic, you know? So what now?
Later, it wasn't quite like that. Let's talk.
I hate Fudge. It's 5th place in my ranking. I know this one is going to make some people a little, maybe annoyed with me. But look, guys, that's how I felt while reading and how I still feel today. And it's simply my personal opinion. You can have your own different one.
In 5th place, there's Severus Snape. Me hating Snape doesn't diminish the greatness of the character, no. Me hating Snape doesn't lessen the impact of his actions against Voldemort.
There, as a spy, no, he's still a great character. He still is. Man, I think Severus Snape as a character is one of my favorites in terms of character development, you know? The development of Severus Snape is one of the ones I like most in Harry Potter, but I hate Snape. I find him unbearable, cruel, you know?
He takes out all his unresolved issues on the students. I think that's just incredibly cruel.
The things he does to Neville, you know, here in the movies, he was completely romanticized. In the movies, it doesn't show even a third of what Snape did to the students, you know?
He was Neville's worst nightmare, to the point of being Neville's boggart.
To take the shape of Snape, to assume Snape's form, you know? So, like, I really hate Snape. I really do. And I don't like this idea that people keep talking about. But he was doing that to keep up his role. That's a lie. He wasn't.
He was doing that because he was frustrated, because he was a person full of remorse, of resentment. He was a gray person.
Even so, despite all that, he stayed there, doing everything he promised Dumbledore he would do, protecting Harry and everything. But the way he treated the kids, the way he was unfair, also really gets to me. He was very unfair. Really, really unfair, man. Unfair to the point that he completely favored Slytherin.
You know, when you read the books, honestly, man, it's not like, wow, Dumbledore covers for Gryffindor.
That really became like an urban legend for people.
Because in the first book, Dumbledore gives those points and changes the house cup, right? But, man.
Snape takes points away from Harry, Ron, Hermione, and other students from other houses all the time. And from Slytherin too. Man. There are moments when Draco casts a spell right in Hermione's face, and he doesn't take points from Slytherin. You know, man, Hermione's teeth are huge, and Snape says he doesn't see any difference, you know? He's really cruel, man. What he does to the kids, he's really cruel. Man, think about it. It's an adult doing this to kids, so I hate Snape because of that. But, Kako, what about what the Marauders did to him? Man, that's not the point, because for me, that's not what made Snape turn out this way. I don't think it was just his relationship with the Marauders that made him this way. Of course, it was one of the things, right? But it wasn't just that. You know, it wasn't just that. The main message of the story is choices, 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 choices. Choices define who we really are. He does choose, yes, to protect. He chooses to serve Dumbledore. He chooses that.
It's like he's paying off a debt he had, you know? He feels that it's a payment of debt to Lily.
But even so, the person's Snape. To be honest, when Snape is attacked, when he dies, I didn't feel sorry. No, I didn't feel pity. Not even after you read that chapter, right?
The story of the prince?
I was more shocked than sorry for him. Like, wow, poor Snape was a poor guy. No, that's not how I see him. I don't think he was a poor guy.
I don't think he really, as a person, was detestable, but he played his role there. Really grand, it's very grand, but I hate him.
And it's a love-hate relationship I have with Snape, because, I love to hate this character, I love to hate Snape.
Alan Rickman, who played him in the movies, he gave Snape a really cool aura, and there are moments of Snape that I love in the movies.
Like, when Harry asks him something, he just ignores him. At Slughorn's party, He just ignores him and walks away, leaving Harry talking to himself. I love that, so a lot of it comes down to Alan Rickman's acting.
Of course, he's a phenomenal character. Snape is a phenomenal character, but I hate him. Snape fans, cut it out, okay? Love him at your own home. That's fine. I don't want to hear about it.
In fourth place in our ranking is Wormtail, man. Wormtail. I wasn't sure if I should put him in fourth place or in the top 3.
There's someone who made it into the top 3 here that I hate even more than Wormtail. Because Wormtail, he's a traitor. He's insignificant. He's a coward. He's scared,
He's a really disgusting person. He's disgusting. The betrayal. He's always where he'll be favored, where the strongest will protect him, no matter which side that is.
So he's disgusting, he's unbearable, but he's a completely detestable character, so it's really obvious. I think it's unanimous.
Everybody hates Wormtail. There's no one who's like, oh no, but wait, let's analyze this. Wormtail, no, Wormtail, he's detestable, so he's in fourth place, simply because of that. Because he's detestable. Because the betrayal he committed against the Potters is just too big of a deal.
It's too much for him not to be in this spot. For him not to be the target of my hatred. One thing that really bothers me about Wormtail is that I felt.
It might sound strange, but remember, I read Harry Potter when I was a teenager, a kid, right?
When I read, for example, Prisoner of Azkaban, I was 9 years old, so I felt really betrayed. Also by Wormtail, man, how could that happen? The rat is Wormtail, who betrayed Harry's parents.
Man, I was so mad at Crookshanks because he was chasing you the whole time, I was defending you, but it was this traitor. It was kind of like that. It's a hatred I still carry to this day. So, Wormtail, I hate you, you parasites.
In third place on my ranking, maybe this will be a surprise for people.
I don't know, but it's Gilderoy Lockhart. Gilderoy Lockhart is in my third place. Because Gilderoy, for a lot of people, is irrelevant. And he really is irrelevant, he's insignificant, he's irrelevant. But why do I hate Gilderoy Lockhart? Because he's an egotistical egomaniac. So arrogant, so overbearing. He thinks he's super important, super famous, that he's even more famous than Harry Potter. He thinks he knows more than everyone else. And if there's one thing I hate, one type of person I hate, it's the person who thinks they know everything. Nothing anyone else has to say can mean anything, can contribute anything. Gilderoy Lockhart was that kind of person, with an astronomical ego. Not to mention, of course, his lack of character and trickery, stealing other people's stories, and simply erasing people's memories. But the main thing about him that makes me hate Gilderoy Lockhart, for him to make it into the top 3 here, is really that he doesn't fit into his proper insignificance, It's a really cool lesson that Dumbledore puts him there, so he ends up impaling himself with his own sword, as Dumbledore says. But I hate that. Because of that, simply because of his gigantic ego, for thinking he's extremely important, and for being a scoundrel who steals things from others, and he still pretends to be,
No, wow, because I faced I don't know who, and blah blah blah. Everything is about him. Everything is him.
This kind of person bothers me because everything revolves around them.
Tudo é sobre a pessoa.
The world revolves around the person. Gilderoy Lockhart is that guy, So I hate him. That's why he's here. In second place. Second place. I'm going to cheat a little, okay? There are 2 people, but for me, they're like 1, which is a big pile of crap, which is Petunia. And Walter, man, I don't think there's any way. I think Walter.
He's more detestable than Voldemort himself. Walter, he's more detestable than Voldemort himself. Because Voldemort. He's built in a certain way.
He is. Wow. He's the Dark Wizard. That's what he is. And you'll see that Voldemort isn't on this list. Voldemort. Voldemort isn't on this list. I don't hate Voldemort. I don't detest Voldemort, of course. Not to the point of hating him, but not enough for him to be in the top 10. You know, it's not like that. Wow. I hate Voldemort. Because Voldemort's whole purpose is to be the villain, to be hated. So, I don't think it would make sense to put him in this top 10, you know? But Walter, he's unbearable, Walter. He really reminds me a lot. People from real life that I had a lot of contact with. You know, Walter? The personification man who lives behind a facade. The family that lives behind a facade, where what matters is how others see them, you know? And like, the main thing about Walter and Petunia, besides hating everything that's out of the ordinary, Walter's lines, you can see the kind of person he is by the things he says. When Sirius Black shows up on television, he says something like this. When are they going to understand that the only solution for these people is the gallows, you know? About Harry. You should have gotten a beating. You should have taken a good beating. Then we would have put an end to this magic nonsense. I think you should have. You didn't get beaten enough. You should have gotten more beatings as a child. Look, this kind of talk, I don't know, does it sound familiar to you? It's something that really irritates me, that really bothers me, that I hate, that I detest. It's repugnant. And Petunia too. Her bitterness and envy make her actions somewhat understandable, right? I understand, I get Petunia's background. I don't think it justifies it, it doesn't justify it. You know, because she was so jealous of Lillian, she felt, I don't know, she didn't feel loved by her parents because she wasn't a witch, but it doesn't justify the way they treated Harry. Guys, every time I think more about Walter and Petunia in Harry's childhood, I think about how cruel they were, because that's how Harry thinks. Baby, I'm a father, children, our kids, babies, anyway. They depend on us so much. They're so dependent. And then I start thinking, Harry was left there at the door when he was 1 year and 3 months old. A child of 1 year and 3 months is so dependent, really so dependent, for changing diapers, for everything. I keep imagining what that treatment was like with Harry, you know, that neglect. He was practically malnourished, you know, because they didn't feed him properly. They used food as a punishment, you know?
Oh, you're not going to eat, you're going to be locked up, and it's disgusting. It's so gross.
I feel disgusted by the Dursleys, like Walter, Petunia, and Dudley. Not so much Dudley, because he's a product of his parents. And then, right? Dudley has a bit of redemption there, but Walter... Man, he's unbearable to me. I hate Walter, and everything he stands for, everything he represents. I hate, I despise him. Like, man, I think it's, I don't know.
For me, it would be really serious. It would be really cool if something happened to Walter. I don't know, you know, like, I don't know. It would be really cool if he suffered because he's really annoying.
He's so small, petty. His way of thinking is so narrow-minded, so boxed in, you know? It really bothers me that he just, Harry, there. When he's about to leave Privet Drive, he says, "No, I get it. This is a plan for you to take our house." Man, it's so petty, so small-minded, you know? That kind of person who argues, you know, like Walter is. Let me give you a real-life example of what Walter is. And Petunia, you know? When your grandma and grandpa die and leave a house, and then there's that inheritance fight, you know, that's what Walter is like.
That kind of person is the type who, while alive, never helped with anything in the house, who was just waiting for the chance to sell it. Like, waiting for the person to die just to sell the house.
But he's like, that kind of person, you know, one of the things about him is that he's that kind of person. That's really how I see him, Walter. I hate Walter. I really hate Walter for the way they treated Harry. It's really cruel, you know? It's way too cruel what they do to Harry. So that's why they take second place together here. And in first place, well, this one is no surprise to anyone. Harry, right? I'm kidding, just messing around. It's not Harry. It's Umbridge, man. There's no way Umbridge isn't the most hated character in Harry Potter. She's worse than Voldemort. She's definitely worse than Voldemort. Why is that? Besides having all the flaws of several other characters I've already mentioned here.
Like the fact that she's a eugenicist, the fact that she's elitist, the fact that she's prejudiced, right? That she hates half-bloods. She pretends to be a good, innocent person. Oh, how I love kittens and how I love the color pink. And oh, I just want things to be organized in their place.
When in reality, she's a monster, a devil, a demon, a wretch. You get Umbridge. She's like that. I wanted to run her over with a truck. A cement mixer. You get it? I hate Umbridge. I despise Umbridge with all my strength. And, man, Umbridge. She's so detestable that it's even in her lines, right? Original, written by the author, that she's a person who even the most prejudiced, elitist guys were shocked by the things she said when she was a bit tipsy. When she had a few drinks, you could see she would just reveal something sadistic. And she was sadistic. She tortured the children. Man, that thing with the pen, I must not tell lies. That's torture, you know? So, man, to me, she's worse than Voldemort. And I think it's no surprise she's here at number 1.
Maybe my ranking was too obvious. I don't know. Maybe it was too obvious. I didn't want to put characters here.
They made me feel angry at times. Like Luna, I know. Man, a lot of people love Luna, right? I actually love the character. But in the books, there are moments when she makes me a little angry. Ron himself makes me angry. Hermione makes me angry. Harry makes me a bit angry. But I didn't want to pick characters that make me angry, like Draco. Man, Draco, he's unbearable, you know? He makes me really angry. But I wanted to include characters that I really developed a hatred for while I was reading. You know, all these years. That doesn't mean I don't understand the way these characters were built. It doesn't mean that it's just like, this video here puts aside all the analysis I do of characters, their stories, their development. Why are they like that? Forget all that. This is just pure, and it's pure hatred for these characters, that's all. But tell me here, I want to know what your top 10 most hated characters are. I know there will be people who will comment and put Sirius Black, and then there will be a fight. There will be a fight, huh? That's messed up. You can put the 10 characters you hate the most, and if you want to add the reasons, feel free. But if you just want to put the list, that's fine too. See you in the next episode of Leaky Cauldron. Ah, I'm feeling relaxed like this. You know those people who, after gossiping and talking a lot, say, "No, I don't want to judge anyone"? This video was kind of like that. I don't want to judge people, but these ones I hate. Thanks. See you in the next Leaky Cauldron episode. Mischief managed.